His vision for the foundation was to create a series of endowments for eastern North Carolina and the middle part of the state and the western part of the state, because he had an experience when he went to school at Harvard and understood that they had a very large endowment, and found out that many of our institutions in North Carolina had very small endowments compared to Harvard, for example. That was his first real introduction to a successful endowment. He was also a great student of history, and he had a very keen appreciation for where we found ourselves in the South, particularly North Carolina, and realized that we had very few endowments in our state to sustain any activities that people might think to be part of the great fabric of our state. And he was very troubled by that, and he wanted to do something about it. The strategy was to start individual endowments in counties that we might seek to serve, so that much like having branch banking, which was of course his forte, that we would have an endowment for every county in North Carolina who wished to have one, in counties that were not being served currently by a community foundation or a large family of means. So it was a county by county strategy. That was how we decided that it would develop best. And it was just a very much yellow legal pad and a map. So eventually we came up with what we thought was a list of people that might be interested. And we contacted them and said, can we come and speak with you? And to his ability, time-wise, he went to some of these meetings. And we essentially worked with people with whom either one of us had had a very strong relationship with in the past. Described to them what we wanted to do and asked them for their assistance. And as you might imagine, the idea fell on fertile territory and infertile territory in the beginning. I think that breaking bread with people over something as important as their charitable desires is very important. It's not a casual conversation. It's really not something that can be done on the phone. You have to really sit down with somebody and outline what is possible. And times have changed, of course, and you can probably tweak this information. But in the very beginning, it was very important to communicate one-on-one and to try to imbue in another person the same wonderful idea and possibilities that we felt the foundation represented. We had an idea, but we had no track record. So we had to develop a compelling idea, and we had to develop a track record over time. But I came back to Raleigh one day and called Mr. Holding on the phone, and I said, you know, there's only one problem with this. People do not know what an endowment is. And I think that initially both he and I took for granted that people would have some idea of what endowment meant. And basically, people did not. And Mr. Holding developed an interesting, what we would now probably call elevator speech. The most simplified version, explanation of an endowment involving the power of compound interest. And he called it the money. And it was very simple. It involved putting his hand in his pocket and coming forth with whatever such paper money and change he had in his pocket and saying, this is the money. And this pays for your gas and your groceries and such household expenses as you have. But where does this come from? It comes from the money, which is the money that you have invested. And all of a sudden, that very simplistic explanation is what got us over the initial hump. It was brilliant in its simplicity, and everybody understood that. So that if you started an endowment, it would grow, and it would grow slowly, but it would always be there, and it would provide the money that you could then give away. Another challenge, I think, is to continue to serve the donors in a very personal way, in a rather impersonal world. And one thing that I used to tell people was, it is as big a challenge to give your money away responsibly, with due diligence, as it is to make the money. When you're making the money, presumably you're doing this in an endeavor that is very familiar to you. You know all the ins and outs of your profession or your accomplishment, your capability. But responsibly giving money away is very challenging and somewhat scary for people that don't deal with this on a daily basis. His core thought about philanthropy was to provide a hand up instead of a hand out. He was more willing to support persons or institutions or causes that were willing to work hard to match money. He liked matching money. He liked to inspire people to reach. He liked for people to be better than they thought they could be, whether that was personally or in an eleemosynary way. So that was really his philanthropic idea. He cared a lot about education. He cared very much about private education, feeling that state institutions would always be able to receive state funds. But he cared very much about small efforts, individual efforts, the product of people's ingenuity. He was very concerned about people that did not have wherewithal but had the power to achieve. And we were very, very clear, as was Mr. Holding, about other people's money and the money that we were able to raise from interested people and board members to sustain our own operations, so that no money from any client ever went to support the workings of the foundation at its core. So we had our own endowment right from the very beginning, so we practiced what we preached. And Mr. Holding was very clear about that. Community foundations are marvelous vehicles because essentially they provide the backdrop of a successful community. Some years ago, there were people who traveled around the United States enumerating what would make a great community. The futurists, Alan Toffler. Great hospitals, good government, good education, and a community foundation, so that the entities in a community that you care the most about, the institutions that you care the most about, would have support from the public to continue their work in spite of cuts that might occur from the government, for example. And I think that a healthy community is a community that takes care of the things they value the most. And the best way to do that is a perpetual fund at a community foundation. A community foundation is a safe place to come and discuss a community foundation meeting. A safe and neutral place to come and discuss the things that are really important and to try to find some solutions to the needs. It's a community catalyst and a rallying point. And if done properly, intended properly, and stewarded properly, it can become a great source of pride and really part of your county identity, just as much as having the best hospital in the region or the best school system, to have the best community foundation. Proper education, proper presentation, sitting down with small groups of people, if you're talking about a community, and explaining to them the power of compound interest and the power of money, the power of the charitable dollar, a vision for the future of the charitable dollar, and how many people working together, many small gifts, when properly put together, can be a big gift, which can make a huge difference. So the Community Foundation is never going to be a place for mass education. It is really a more personal communication done to presentations to civic groups and interested people. We did many groups in people's homes. We would ask someone, we're not asking you for money. We're asking you for a venue to tell our story. And that was the initial part of the building of the community foundations. Many evenings, many crack of dawn breakfast meetings, many lunches, many miles traveled. You have to feel this personally, and you have to seek people in the community that you know are interested in the community. You have to find a fertile field to plant the seeds. I would counsel them to have a very well-defined idea of the cause that they espouse, where they're going, how they plan to manage the money. People are very interested in the proper management of money. And to develop their system of presenting that in a clear and truthful manner. Because in the final analysis, a donor who is sitting down to make a decision about giving their money away really wants to know, is it a value? Are they getting value for their gift? Everyone wants to know that. Is it worth it? Are you worth it? So you can't go into it in a casual way. It can't be just, here we are and this is what we do. You have to be much more intentional and purposeful about it and careful about it. You can't expect people to give you their after-tax dollars if you don't deserve them. Be deserving. Just keep seeking new ways to expand yourself in the community. Make new contacts. Do not rest on your laurels. Many of the people, it's hard to think about this, but many of the people who were interested in us when we started are now like me. I have a little age on them. And so for the health of a community foundation, I think that it is necessary to seek the next generation and yet the next generation, and to encourage with board members and interested people the notion of family philanthropy as carried out through a community foundation, so that you begin to pass this notion of giving from generation to generation. If the community foundation boards in our counties that we serve now do not seek to reach down to the next generation and educate them and bring them along, that would be a problem. Well, in sum, I think that we are a state of generosity.